Umeona hiyo part ya pili?
I can't hear you. Wanyango? Wanyango?
Okay, Mr. Mwalimu.
Yes.
I realized you were not recording the lesson, that's why I interrupted in between, but it's okay, I've rectified.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. It's okay. Make me the host, please. Okay, it's okay. Now, yeah. No, okay, guys, so sorry for whatever that we have done up to there. We were not recording it, and actually, whatever we have discussed or reminded ourselves was whatever that we covered last time, and then now it was a chance to Carl Davis. Carl Davis, can you hear me? Carl Davis. Carl Davis, it's your chance now. Carl Davis.
Yes, I can hear.
Carl Davis.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. Yes, Carl Davis.
Just repeat the question.
Now, I requested you to discuss with us whatever that you can remember, just a preview of whatever we covered last time. Anything? Some topics that we covered and whatever that you learned from them. Carl Davis?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Carl Davis?
Yes.
Yeah, mention anything that you learned last time?
We learned about the Portuguese conquest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and mainly about the Portuguese conquest.
Now, thank you for that, Carl Davis. Did we discuss about the problems that were faced by the Portuguese? The problems that were faced by the Portuguese and also the captains? If I can very quickly go through them, is that the problems that they faced when they came now to establish their rule, the first one were harsh and unfavorable climatic conditions. The pili, it was about the affliction by the tropical diseases. Then the other one was inadequate personnel and also the troops. And the other one was constant rebellion, some hostility by the local people. And from there, we discussed about the reasons for the construction of Fort Jesus. You can remember to listen to watchtower, then it would serve as a hiding place against the attacks by the enemies. And also, we said it was detected as a military base, for storage of the armaments. And also, it was a base of administration. It was a base of administration and also a prison for the captives. It acted as a prison where they could keep their prisoners. And also it served as a base for sending punitive expeditions against the resisting people. And the last one, but not the least, it was also a resting place for them, whereby they could come and stop as they maybe take their commodities, and then they leave. Then from there, we went the decline of the Portuguese rule, tukasema. The Portuguese rule declined due to the following factors. Number one, tulisema the country was so small, with a small population, therefore, she was not able to get enough administration, no adequate army to administer. And also the second one, ilikuwa ni delayment in getting reinforcement due to the distance. And then the third one, ilikuwa ni nature of the Portuguese officials. That is, most of the Portuguese officials will serve short time, and also walikuwa greedy and corrupt. Then the other one we said, ulikuwa na the Portuguese, the Portuguese annexation. by Spanish between the 1580 and 16, which weakened Portuguese control over her trading colonies as she diverted their attention back home. And then kulikuwa na the Portuguese administrators suffered tropical diseases. And then the sixth one tuliongea about the Portuguese had a negative attitude and were unfriendly towards the local people, therefore they could get the resistance. Seventh one, we said the Portuguese had inadequate resources and finance. Then kulikuwa na frequent rebellion by the coastal people, which was as a result of now their behavior, their cruel behavior. Then kulikuwa na invasion by the Zimba warriors. There was the issue of the invasion by the Zimba warriors. Hawa ni wa Mozambique. Zimba warriors in 1588 from Mozambique, which left the towns virtually deserted. And then the other one kulikuwa na the coming of the European powers, other European powers in the 16th century, which also challenged and threatened the Portuguese monopoly to the East Coast trade. Then, kwa impacts za rule, ndizo zile tumepatiana. Okay, kulikuwa na pia invasion of the East Coast by the Muslim. Then kulikuwa na an invading fleet from the Oman, which destroyed the Portuguese possession. And then kulikuwa na the siege of Fort Jesus. Ile yenye walikuwa wakitumia kama fort, kama watching tower, hiding place, and all those. Then kulikuwa na hizi impacts. Tulisema ya kwanza kulikuwa na decline of trade, constant rebellion, loss of lives, inefficient administration. Then those were now the negative ones. And then the other one, kulikuwa na local people did not cooperate with the Portuguese. Kulikuwa na decline and the ruining of the coastal towns. Then kulikuwa na the rule was also disrupted by Islam, Islamic. Kulikuwa pia na introduction of guns and ammunition, which led to intensification of warfare. Zili stimulate vita, and therefore it led to loss of lives. Kulikuwa na slave raiding, which was also intensified. And from there now we went to the positive, whereby for positive, kulikuwa na introduction of new crops such as maize. Now, once you're told to explain, guys, please remember, you cannot just say there was the introduction of new crops. That's what you have stated. Remember always to explain so that you can get the 2 marks. For instance, if you're talking about the introduction of new crops, mention some of those new crops for you to get the 2 marks. So, introduction of new crops such as maize, groundnuts, cassava, sweet potatoes, pineapples, pawpaws, and the guavas. Then the second one, kulikuwa na enhancement of the development of the Kiswahili language. Enhancement of the development of Kiswahili language, whereby they added a number of words to the Swahili language, that is meza, which was stable, baruti, which was dynamite, mvinyo, which was wine. Then the third one, we said there was the influence, they also brought the influence of the architecture to the East Coast. Mali will introduce the new designs for building of houses, among others. Then there was also the promotion of good relationship, relation between the East Coast and the Indian. Then kulikuwa na the opening up of the East Coast to the other European powers such as Britain and also Holland. Then kulikuwa na introduction of farmyard manure, which was used for farming, a highly developed farming system. And the seventh one, but not the last one, is that a few Africans were converted to Christianity by the Portuguese. And also they built a few churches and converted a few Africans to Christianity. Then, therefore, the administration of the East Coast was entrusted to various local Arabs, Arab governors. E.g., Mombasa was given to the Mazrui family. Lamu was given to Nabahan family. And then, now, upon the establishment of the Oman rule. Establishment and the impact of the Oman rule, what we are going now to cover today, is that after sasa Portuguese wamekuja, the Arabs came, and they will introduce the Oman rule. And therefore, you actually need to know, after the fall of Fort Jesus, which they use actually as a hiding point, the watchtower, and also a base where they were storing their weapons. The thing is that after the fall of Fort Jesus in 1695, the east coast of Africa came under the Oman rule. This happened to Omans. The Arabs started now taking over or controlling for the east coast. And you need to know the Oman, the Omans, is a small country in Arabia on the Persian Gulf, and the Imam of the Oman became the rulers of the east coast. The Imam could not exert his authority over the coastal town directly due to the following challenges. The first one, the distance from Oman to the coast, to the east coast, was a challenge. So the first challenge as to why he could not control they could not control it directly, was the distance. That's the key point, the distance. Then from there, kulikuwa na pia civil wars in Oman, civil wars in the Oman land, and the other one, kulikuwa na threat of the Persian invasion. So those are the three challenges which made them not to be able to rule or control East Coast directly, the authority of the coastal towns directly. Then sasa ndio tumesema, therefore, the administration of the East Coast was entrusted to various local Arab governments, e.g. Mombasa, which was given to the Mazrui family. Lamu was given to Nabahan family. And we said, Oman rule was as unpopular as that of the predecessors. Some of the governors were harsh and ruthless. Therefore, we go now to the struggle, they struggled for the power and also ensured that they got the power between the Mazrui, shared the power between the Mazrui and the Imams of the Oman. Therefore, we said Oman was ruled by the Yorubi Sultan up to the 1741, when a new ruling dynasty was enrolled in Oman. That is the Busaidi dynasty, which brought the struggle for domination of the East Coast between the Mazaria and Busaidi families, which lasted for 100 years. That was between 1741 to 1840, close to 100 years. And therefore, the reasons as to why they had the conflicts, the reasons for this conflict, the reasons as to why they fought between themselves was that all of them wanted, had the desire. It was the desire of the Omani sultans to control the coastal towns, including Mombasa, and to gain control of the trade. So the key point was to take control of the trade of the East Coast trade. The second one was that Mazrui governors wanted to be independent, and the third one was Mombasa had fought hard against the Portuguese and had no desire to be ruled by another foreign power. So also the people of Mombasa started fighting because they never wanted to be controlled. The fourth one was that the Sultan of Oman wanted to gain monopoly of the coastal trade. Wanted to gain monopoly of the coastal trade. So we have said. And therefore, the milestones in which the struggle between Said Hussein and the Mazrui governors went was that, the course, na sio ile ya CA, the COUR, how it took place was that in 1806, Said Hussein ascended to the throne in Oman and continued with the struggle. And therefore, he built a fortress in Mombasa and ordered all towns to recognize the power of Oman. Therefore, in 1800, between 1800 and 1807, Mazrui extended their rule from Malindi to Pangani. And therefore, in 1807, Mombasa took over Pate. And in 1810, Mombasa also attacked Lamu. And in 1810, Mombasa attacked Lamu. And in 1810, and in 1814, Mazrui governor appealed to the British for assistance, aid. And therefore, in 1817, Said liberated Pate from Mazrui rule, and he liberated also Pemba and Brava from the Mazrui rule. Also Said gained control of the Bayun Island. And in 1827, Said unsuccessfully attempted to subdue Mombasa. And in 1829, Said paid another visit to the coast. He also paid another visit to the coast. And in 1837, he conquered now Mombasa, and he murdered all the leading Mazrui. And in 1840 now, Said shifted his capital from Muscat in Oman to Zanzibar. From Muscat in Oman to now Zanzibar. Now, from this point here of him shifting his capital from Muscat to Oman, Zanzibar, a question usually comes at that point, which is very simple, whereby you will be asked to give. So you can note it down. These guys, you can note it down. In the exam, you can be told to explain or list, state, discuss the reasons why Said shifted his capital to Zanzibar. From Muscat to Zanzibar. So the question can come, explain the reasons why Said shifted his capital to Zanzibar. From Muscat to Zanzibar. Shifted his capital from Muscat to Zanzibar. And the first and the obvious one was that it was in order for him to control his East African dominations more effectively. It was in order, he did so in order to control his East African dominations more effectively. The second one was that ilikuwa ni the position of the island made it more easy. The position of the island, mahali penye ilikuwa hiyo island situated, made it more easy to safeguard his territory. Juu ni island pale juu katikati ya maji, so as a result of moving to that place and making it his capital, he was able to control and be able to see the enemies that are approaching from all dimensions. So the first one ilikuwa he wanted to control his domination more effectively. The second one is that the position of the island was favorite for his control, and therefore he could see any approaching enemy from far. Yeah. Now I've given you the easy ones, so let me briefly take you through them. The ones that I've made listed down. The other one that we have given, it was in order to control his East African dominations more effectively. Ya pili, I hope you guys are noting down. Ya kwanza tumesema, it was in order for him to be able to control his East African domination more effectively. And the second one was that Zanzibar was centrally located, and therefore its position was ideal for trade. So hii ni tofauti na ile ingine ya kuwa easy to safeguard. Hii ni kwamba Zanzibar was centrally located, and therefore its position was ideal for trade with the mainland and also with Mombasa to the north. So tumesema Zanzibar was centrally located and its position was ideal for trade with the mainland and also with Mombasa to the north. Then number 3 is that Zanzibar had a cool, pleasant climate. Zanzibar had a cool, pleasant climate compared to Muscat, which was hot and dry. Then the fourth one is that Zanzibar had sufficient rainfall and fertile soils. Zanzibar had sufficient rainfall and fertile soils, which was favorable for agriculture, especially the cultivation of cloves. And then the fifth one is that its position as an island made it more easy to safeguard his territory. Its position as an island made it more easy to safeguard his territory. Then another one was that Zanzibar had good harbors with deep waters Zanzibar had good harbors with deep waters and could be an international port. Zanzibar had good harbors with deep waters and could be an international port of call for large vessels, whereby the large vessels could dock at an easy range without any disturbance. Then another one was that Zanzibar had fresh, clean water. 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 And last one but not the least is that he also found Zanzibar. He also found Zanzibar of immune. Okay, let's say he also found Zanzibar of immense strategic importance, which he would use to control. He also found Zanzibar of immense strategic importance. He also found Zanzibar of immense strategic importance. Which he would use to control, international trade and also the long distance trade with the interior. Immense at this point we mean very large, very huge. He found it of a very large importance, strategic importance, which meant that he was able to control the international trade and also the long distance trade with the interior. Then from there, we now go to the factors that enabled Said to develop plantation agriculture. Factors that made it easy for him to be able to develop plantation agriculture. And from whatever that we have gotten, it was a climate, it come of fresh water, great agricultural potential, fertility of the land. Ndizo zilimfanya decide now he wants to start plantation. So you can note it down. Factors that enabled Said to develop plantation agriculture. The first and the obvious one is that Zanzibar had fresh, clean water. 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 The second one is that the East Africa had great agricultural potential. The East Africa had great agricultural potential, whereby he established his own clove farms in Zanzibar. Another one is that the East Africa was particularly suited to large-scale crop growing. East Africa was particularly suited to to large-scale crop growing. To large-scale crop growing. The fourth one was that he encouraged settlers from Oman and Zanzibar. The encouragement of the settlers from Zanzibar and Oman to settle in Mombasa, Lamu, Malindi, and Pemba. To settle the settlers from Oman, Zanzibar, to settle in Mombasa, Lamu, Malindi, and Pemba, and plant cloves. He encouraged the encouragement of those settler farmers from Oman and Zanzibar to settle and also plant cloves. The fifth one was that the agricultural activities were intensified from 1840, and therefore it was based on crops such as rice, maize, millet, sesame, beans, sorghum, coconut, and the grains, as well as it was based on crops such as rice, maize, millet, beans, sesame, sorghum, coconut, and grains, as well as tree crops, such as mangoes, citrus fruits, and also the cashew nuts. Number 6 is that he encouraged the establishment of plantations. He encouraged the establishment of plantations around Malindi and Takaungu. He encouraged the establishment of plantations around Malindi and Takaungu. Number 7, which is our last point but not the least, is that he also there was the establishment, he also brought about the establishment of plantation economy, which intensified slave trade. The establishment of plantation economy, which intensified slave trade. Now, I know so many are asking themselves maybe, how did this slave trade occur? Now, I can very briefly take you through the causes, sababu zenye zilisababisha slave trade, and the causes are as follows. Causes za slave trade. The kwanza nilikuwa ni causes of the slave trade. You can note them down. Whereby now, even in the exam, you can be asked maybe to list 4 or 5 causes of the slave trade. for causes of the slave trade ni kwamba ya kwanza kulikuwa na increased internal demand for slaves, increased internal demand for slave labor, increased internal demand for slave labor on clove plantations in Zanzibar, Pemba, Malindi, and Mombasa. There's an increased internal demand for slaves, slave labor, the people now who are required to be working for hizo clove plantations in Zanzibar, Pemba, Malindi, and also Mombasa. Then the second one, cause ya pili ya kufanya kukuwa na demand ya slave trade, the reason as to why ilikuja kuokai slave trade is that the slaves were needed in French sugar plantation. Slaves were needed in French sugar plantation on the islands of Reunion and Mauritius. Slaves were needed in French sugar plantations on the islands of Reunion and Mauritius. So kulikuwa na high demand of slaves when you walikuwa working the French plantations. And then the third one is that kulikuwa na demand for slaves, porters especially. Kulikuwa na high demand for slave porters, especially in the ivory trade. Porters wenye walitumika especially kwa ivory trade and transportation of agricultural goods. So kulikuwa na high demand of labor that was to be provided, produced, for them to be working kwa ivory trade and also the transportation of agricultural goods. And the other one is that the slaves were in demand. Kulikuwa na high demand of slaves in Arabia. There was the high demand or increased demand of slaves in Arabia to work as domestic workers, servants and also soldiers. To work as domestic workers, servants, soldiers. And then another one is that the Portuguese needed slave labor in their plantations. The Portuguese needed slave labor in their plantations in Brazil. Then from there, another point which is mostly examined in the exams ni unaulizwa states, explain, list the methods used to obtain slaves. Zile njia zenye wazungu walitumia in order for them to get now these slaves. Remember, those who were slaves not out of their own wish. No, they were forced. Those which they used to obtain were as follows. Ya kwanza ni kwamba kulikuwa na method yenye ilikuwa inaitwa slave raids from the word ile kuenda muna capture watu na mnawalazimisha maybe to come and work at your place. So ya kwanza tumesema ni slave raids. whereby those captured in the inter and intra-community warfare were captured as slaves. Ama were sold, captured, and also exchanged and given out as slaves. Then another one, the chiefs also sold criminals to slave traders. Chief alikuwa anakuja kwa kijiji yake, wale wenye wanamsumbua sana, ukishikwa, the only punishment you get is to be given out ama sold as slaves to the slave traders. Ama you are exchanged maybe with commodities such as clothes and other things. Also, another method was kidnapping of children, and the lone travelers by the slave raiders. Kidnapping of children and the lone travelers by the slave raiders. And also, another one was that the defenseless and helpless people were also taken as captives. The defenseless and helpless people were also taken as captives. And another one, yenye naweza ongezea, you can see I did not capture it, ilikuwa ni the debtors, ama wale walishindwa kulipa madeni. Once you are unable to pay a debt, unauzwa in exchange so that they can sort the bill. The debtors were also sold as a result of being unable to pay their debt. Debtors were also sold as a result of being unable to pay their debts. From there, the same topic, you can remember you covered about the factors that led to the abolition of the slave trade. This point also is examined sana including kwa KCSE ama ile tunaita CS. This part is always there. Not that it's a must each and every year, but it's a part whereby they mostly like to examine, whereby they ask you to state or explain the factors that led, those things that contributed to the abolishment of slave trade. Ya kwanza ni the humanitarian rule. The humanitarian rule, the role of the humanitarians. Humanitarian rule ni ile yenye ilikuwa inasema kwamba humanitarian rule walisema ni ile yenye walikuwa mnabelieve kwamba for you to be engaging guys in slave trade, it was also inhuman and it was a violation of human rights. So, ya kwanza tumesema ni the humanitarian role. The humanitarian role whereby mainly the British, e.g. Granville Sharp and also William Wilberforce, they considered slave trade as inhuman and a violation of the human rights. And also a violation of the human rights. Then, ya pili, kulikuwa ni the establishment of the Industrial Revolution. Industrial Revolution was also another factor which made them to start abolishing, brought about the issue of abolishment of the slave trade. Industrial Revolution. Caesar Munene, can you hear me? Munene? Caesar? Caesar? Caesar, can you hear me? Caesar? Caesar, can you hear me? Caesar? Can't hear you, Caesar. Caesar, can you hear me? Okay, I can't hear you well, Caesar. I just wanted you to explain for us the Industrial Revolution, but it's okay. I'll give you another question. Yes, Caesar? Can you hear me, please? Caesar? Caesar? Okay, kwa Industrial Revolution, ilikuja ku bring about the issue of abolishment of the slave trade, whereby walipoanza kuintroduce machines zilikuja zika replace the human labor, and as a result of the machines replacing the human labor, they were forced now to stop the slave trade. And by now, for instance, maybe kama ni kwa industry, let's take an example of kupasua kuni. If 10 guys could be able to maybe cut these logs one lorry for a whole day, there was the introduction of machines, new machines, zenye zimekuja zika replace the human labor, and therefore a machine maybe inaweza kuweza kukatakata kuni for like 1 hour na inajaza lorry. So kulikuwa na Industrial Revolution. The change in the industry also brought about the issue of slave abolishment, slave trade abolishment. Then the other one, kulikuwa na the people were needed back on their farms in Africa to produce cheap raw materials for the British industries. So Mzungu pia alihitaji ama alirelease. Reason as why he also started now reducing the issue of a slave trade was that alitaka Mwafrika arudi huko produce raw materials zenye atakuja achukue cheaply, aki-exchange na nguo anachukua like gold, and then anatupatia vitu kama clothes, vitu kama guns. So whatever that we produce, they. And then another one was those people would also constitute, these people would also constitute a market for the British products, for the British processed goods. This point means that the British also found that they can make use of this African person, whereby they will give him a chance to go home at his place, and they will come and establish a market for their finished goods. Then when produce wanakuja pia wanatuzia, as also they get in exchange maybe some quality products from places, raw materials, in exchange with cheap things that they will give. Then another one was that the machines were being installed in industries, therefore they would also, this one is also the same as the one that I gave, but you can also differentiate them. Pale penye utasema kama ya machine to replace the human labor, and then nyingine kama ni Industrial Revolution ni pale penye vitu kama products vitu kama farm implements, inputs zitakuja zikuwe za high grade, and they will bring about the issue of a slave abolition. So machines were being installed in industries, therefore they replaced manual labor. That one is supposed to be labor. They replaced manual labor as they were more efficient and reliable than slaves. As they were more efficient and reliable than slaves. Another one is that there was the influence of writings such as journals by Dr. Livingstone. Kulikuwa na influence of writings such as the journals of Dr. Livingstone. whereby they campaigned against the slave trade and its evils. So the writings that were made by some of those educated fellows, such as Dr. Livingstone, they campaigned against the slave trade and its evils. And then, last one, on the influence of the British economists. So ile ya kwanza tulisema ni humanitarian rule. Ile wanaona ni kuwa unapigana na, ama you are trying to maybe stop ama kufinyilia watu. If that is the easiest word that I can use, whereby umekiuka haki za binadamu, maybe I can say that in Kiswahili. And then there's also now the difference between humanitarian rule na the influence of the British economist. Humanitarian rule ni ile wanasema rights za binadamu zimekuwa violated. Then influence of the British economist ni wenye waliargue that, e.g. for instance, example hapa ilikuwa ni Adam Smith, where he argued that free people were more productive than slaves. So kuna ile humanitarian rule, and then kuna sasa hii the influence of the British economist, such as, so you actually need to note the example, such as Adam Smith, whereby kwa kuexplain hii unafaa kusema he argued that free people were more productive than slaves. Now, kwa hii free people ni ile aliargue that mtu mwenye maybe amekuja kutafuta kazi out of his own wish ndio apate mshahara, atatend to work more effectively than yule mtu mwenye analazimishwa, which actually I tend to think it's true. Ukilazimishwa kufanya kitu, will do it just shallowly ama anyhowly. But once you have gone to look for maybe for the work or the job, you will tend to give your best. If not 100%, you'll give 90 or 80, as compared to somebody who is being forced. Then from there, you covered about the steps in the abolishment of slave trade. Steps that were taken in the abolishment of slave trade. And these steps were that in 1822, the Moresby Treaty was signed. In 1822, the Moresby Treaty was signed, and it forbade the sale of slaves to West Indians, and also another place known as the Reunion, and also Mauritius as well as Arabia. And also in the same treaty, it is stated that it was to be reinforced by the British naval. 1845, Hamilton Treaty was also signed, and it forbade slave trade between Zanzibar and Oman. In 1873, the Frere Treaty was signed by the British and Said Bagashi, which forbade the slave trade in any parts of the Sultan dominions, as well as all the slave markets which were closed. And in 1907, slavery was finally abolished in the East African territory. Momo?
Yeah,
Yes, Momo?
will the exam ask about steps in the abolition of slave trade?
No. Under very rare conditions that you can get maybe the examiner asking you to state the steps. But it's also in order for you as an historian to just note in this year, this treaty was signed and they kasema wafanyi wiki na hiki na hiki. Is that okay, Mumo?
Yes.
Yeah, for your own knowledge, because I'm very sure this history you will continue with it maybe in future. Sindio?
Yes.
Yes, sawa. Okay, Caesar. Monene. Caesar Monene. Monene has disappeared again. Okay, let's continue. Then, from there, tukaenda kwa effects. Effects za hii slave trade. These ones are very easy. Very easy. Effects are the outcomes. The same as the impacts. So, please guys, let's learn these similar words, the ones that they mean the same. Effects, outcomes, and the impact. So, usipate umeambiwa the impacts and then you try to think, oh, this thing we have never got. No, it's the same, they mean the same. So, they can be negative and also positive. So, I've just listed them, both negative and positive. You must differentiate for easy understanding, whereby kwa negative one, the slave trade ni kwamba kulikuwa na Africans suffering the widespread and misery during the slave raids. The Africans suffered widespread suffering and misery during the slave raids. Haya, ya pili ni loss of life. Loss of life. Hii loss of life ilikuja as a result of people being forced to work. Wakienda wakiwa wanapata chakula less and they tend to use more energy. Then the other one kulikuwa na destruction of properties, e.g. houses and also crops. So kuna widespread of suffering na misery during the slave raids. And ya pili ni loss of lives. The tatu ni destruction of properties, e.g. the houses and also the crops, which led to famine na pia destruction, destitution and also poverty. Then kulikuwa na the fourth one ni kwamba there was the issue of disintegration of families. Ile kutengana, disintegration of family ties due to the displacement during the raids. Disintegration of families due to displacements during the raids. Then the other one ilikuwa ni depopulation in the hinterland. Depopulation in the hinterland. Depopulation ama kupunguka kwa watu in hinterland. Then also in the same mali penye kulikuwa sasa na hii depopulation, it was as a result of the able-bodied people being taken away. Able-bodied people being captured and taken away. It's the same as population decrease in some areas. Then the positive ones ni as follows. Positive ones ama zilileta msaada ama zilisaidia ni establishment of the flourishing plantation. Establishment of the flourishing plantations. Ya pili, introduction of new crops ama food crops. Then ya tatu ilikuwa ni the spread and use of Kiswahili in many parts of East and Central Africa. The spread and use of Kiswahili in many parts of East and Central Africa. Then ya nne kulikuwa na the spread of Islam and Islamic culture. The Islam religion and Islamic culture. Spread of Islam and Islamic culture. And then another one kulikuwa na the development of cloth and other related industries. The development of clothes and other related industries. And the sixth one ilikuwa ni the establishment of homes and homes for the freed slaves. The establishment of homes for the freed slaves at Bagamoyo and Freetown. Establishment of homes for the freed slaves at Bagamoyo and Freetown. Then from there now, as I can see, time is winding up for our lesson. Yes, Ernest?
Please go to the previous slide about the negative impacts.
Okay, the negative impacts?
Yes.
Yeah, here we are. Yes.
Okay. One more.
Okay, I know. Yeah.
The previous one.
Yes, Momo?
The previous one.
Momo? Okay, the previous one.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I'm okay now.
You okay?
Yes.
Okay, I never gave you these ones. Umeona hizi? Nimezi-skip, sorry for that. Negative ones. Nimezi-skip. Yeah, kina Ryan, Ian, I'm coming. Please, let me. So this. Momo, are you now okay? Momo?
I'm okay.
Momo, are you okay? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Ciao. Ian? Ian?
The introduction of plantations and new crops, 2 different points.
Yeah. Yes.
This introduction of plantations and the introduction of new crops, 2 different points.
Yeah, you can make them 2 different points, whereby for plantation, you are talking about sasa hizo mashamba. Umeelewa?
Yes.
Yes, Mugabe? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mugabe? For plantations,
Yes.
you are talking about them converting sasa hizi vast land to be now of use for kupanda vitu kama cloves. Then, for new crops, ni pale wameintroduce things such as rice, maize. Now, specifically the crops now. Plantation ni hizo mashamba, then crops now is now to the crop itself. Is it okay?
Yes.
Mugabe, is it? Okay. Then let me have Kim. Ryan? Ryan, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Ryan.
Now, I was asking on according to the negative impacts, can you say that the slave trade hindered the internal trade in Africa? Can you say that slave trade? Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you say that slave trade hindered the internal trade? Due to
you can say. Ilimaliza kama zile long distance.
Yeah.
Na hizi local, it was also a challenge.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome. Now, Caesar Monene. Okay, Bruce. Bruce, can you hear me? Bruce, can you hear me? Bruce, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Bruce, can you say something as we wind up?
Sure, I have nothing to say.
Bruce?
Yes?
You can even say hi to the fellow man, Bona. Bruce?
Hello. Yes?
Bruce?
Yes?
Conclude the lesson for us. You conclude the lesson for us.
Yes?
Yeah? Bruce?
Sure, by saying what?
Bruce?
Yes?
Yeah. Just say hi to your everyone and then you lead us with a word of prayer.
Okay.
Apple, Bruce.
Yes.
Apple, Bruce. Bruce. Bruce.
Okay, let's pray.
Sawa.
Yeah. Thank you, Lord, for the lesson which you have had. And thank you for the teacher, meet Father. Please God, meet Father, during this pandemic, meet Father. Let us all be safe. And in Jesus' name I do pray, amen.
Okay, amen. Thanks so much, Bruce.
Yes.
Okay, Mumo. Mumo, I can see you have something.
No.
Mumo?
I don't have anything.
Okay, thanks so much, guys, for your time. Please stay safe and let's continue studying. Cheers.